wow, yo, yippee, yay, guys. Part number 1, and I'm super excited to be with you guys. As always, we're going to dive into the love of the community, then talk about what has happened on SwissBorg Network. And in this special episode, we're going to talk about Bitcoin ETF, the future ETF, how Bitcoin is going to be adopted by institutional mass, how is this going to change for the crypto industry, but for yourself as well, and based on a great study that we've made, trying to figure out if this is a good sign for the early time as well for the long ride. As you guys know, my name is Cyrus Fuzel. I'm the proud founder and CEO of SwissBorg, always here to serve you. First and foremost, I had to wish you all of you guys, happy New Year. This is the special moment of 2024 that we've been waiting already for 2 years to happen. We are in the 4th cycle of crypto. And just this week, we have had a lot of great news already on the crypto network with Gary showing us some light. Question of the week, Sway. Great question, asking essentially, in these vaults, sometimes the first vault is often Borg and people are able to invest their Borg. Why is that so? So we always wanted to create new utilities to make sure that people essentially are using SwissBorg, but as well being able to use SwissBorg token in a different way. And this is a strong utility that we've probably witnessed in every different essentially alpha opportunity and every event in early investments or as well discount type deals that we do. So why do we do that is quite clear. And how do we do it is that we really usually in each different vault, we have one clear Borg one, and it's between 5 to 10% of the total essentially allocation that goes to this project. So what do these Borg do? There's 2 ways. The Borg could be used just for us to buy back some Borgs for our treasury, or essentially the product essentially keeps those Borg. It's not every project that wants to keep Borg because some essentially projects really need this capital and essentially they would sell it right away. So for those who would want to sell it right away, there's no real essentially usage for this. So we just keep it for ourselves, for the company, of course. And then what you have to understand is that there is some essentially great companies that believe in SwissBorg as well and don't necessarily need all this cash right away. So essentially they keep their tokens. There's no lockup periods for now. It's really at the full discretion. We tracked some of our tokens that we sent. Nothing was sold so far for different projects. So what can I say is that going forward, we would of course hope to increase these bucket size where essentially projects could get more allocation in Borg, keep that token. And as things grow and grow, probably a lot of projects will be very happy to keep some Borg and making sure that this is a new utility and that other treasuries within the space will have Borg in mind and as well become Borgers. News of the week, obviously, it's all about volatility, going for the ETF, going yes or no. This is pretty much what it is. Everyone has his eyes on the SEC trying to approve a very long list of essentially Bitcoins. So I think this is pretty much what it's mainly all about this week. So this ETF, what is it all about? Why is everyone talking about the ETF and keep on talking about? Me personally, since 2016, I've been waiting for this ETF. And that's a long time when you think about it. For those who don't know what an ETF, just quickly, an ETF is an exchange traded fund. And the great thing about these ETFs that really have changed the world since I would say 2008, 2009 with BlackRock, Fidelity, and Vanguard and many others, it's a very good way for anyone to get exposure to essentially different stocks. And it's usually a way where you have baskets of these different stocks that you invest into. But not only, right? An ETF has actually had a role to play with different instruments that people usually really wanted to invest but couldn't really. And in this study, what we're going to try to talk about is how this has really essentially evolved with the Bitcoin ETF. So let's get right into it. So the Bitcoin ETF is such a huge thing. And the reason why it's such a big thing is how essentially ETFs have changed the markets of stocks, of gold, and a lot of different instruments. In 2005, let's say, but really 2008-9, the revolution of the financial sector came with these ETFs, where retail started buying into these baskets of stocks, but as well, a lot of different institutional investors. And one of the big catalysts for BlackRock for becoming extremely successful was essentially the launch of the ETF of gold. And what is very interesting, what Larry Fink says right now, is that I do believe that crypto is digitizing gold in many ways. And this is where this becomes so bullish. Essentially, I'll rewind a story in 2007. When I started my career working as a junior private banker at Julius Baer, I was essentially got to talk to a lot of many clients, right? Some of them were, let's say, type of, small accounts and had some financial knowledge. And I did talk as well to institutional clients where I essentially was trying to advise them or doing execution in some way where it would do things better. I saw in 2007 and a lot of institutional, let's say, smarter, more active type of portfolios that were essentially buying gold. And how they were buying gold, they're buying gold through futures that were rolling every month. And I had to essentially roll over their positions and buy and sell different futures every other month. And I started looking into this and I said to the bank where I was working, I was like, why so many people buying gold? Well, they're buying gold because they feel that the market will maybe essentially turn, and this is a great way to fight against essentially a market that gets a bit crazy and goes very bearish. But it's another way to fight against inflation over that. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And say, well, why do we as a bank not offer a great solution? Because the future seems something that's very complicated. Back then, they're saying, no, well, we actually do. People could easily buy physical gold that we store. And I'm like, okay, but is that easy? And like, well, it's not that easy. They have to have a minimum. Then there's a cost of storage, but a lot of people like doing that. I'm like, okay. And then we had smaller clients that really wanted to buy gold. And I tried to figure out every way. And essentially there was no way for them because rolling futures was really too complicated. The contracts were, expensive. The cost of doing it and all that was a bit expensive. And what the brilliance of what essentially, BlackRock came in the thing is that they essentially created a way to create an ETF about gold. Why are we so bullish? Because if you think about investment in gold, it's been used 50% essentially for its own jewelry, technology, but 50% has been really used by an investment. And that's central banks that have physical gold and roll through futures and whatsoever, but as well people holding ETFs. If you look into what has happened and why people allocated gold into their portfolios is to fight against inflation edge. It's good for recession. It's a good way to contribute to have a better, essentially, diversification within your portfolio. Well, obviously, Bitcoin is the new gold, and you see this very well, right? A traditional portfolio, right? This is what the traditional portfolio will have done. If you added 5% of that allocation into a Bitcoin, this is how much you would have outperformed it. And this is quite insane, right? From 2014 with only 5%, you would literally have done 3 times better with 5% allocation in Bitcoin. And you can say, oh, okay, that's easy because, probably this has done in the past. And, 2014 investing in Bitcoin might be late. That is probably true. But even here, the outperformance is really, really great if you just look back at the last 4 years. And this is the better way how to look at this is if you look at the allocation here, you see the traditional portfolio, which is 60%, bonds, 40%, stocks. You would see that a Sharpe ratio within that 10 years would have been 0.29. So essentially the risk-based divided by the performance divided by the risk. And the analyzed return would have been 5%. If you put 5% of Bitcoin, you would have 10% and 0.6 in terms of Sharpe ratio. So much better. And the drawdown would not be so much different, right? Even if the huge amount of drawdowns that Bitcoin went through. So looking at that, people now understand very well that having Bitcoin is a necessity. And any investment manager, financial advisor knows that having a small portion, from 1% to 5% is the minimum required in order to perform well. And I would say on top of this, which is very important, is how these ETFs, providers, biggest asset managers in the world, BlackRock, Charlie, Fidelity, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, UBS, then you name it, are so bullish that they believe that they will bring probably 40 billion in the first year. And that is really something that people have to think about. Bringing so much fresh money into an industry that has been cut over forever is a ground changing thing. And it's the last time that you could front run most people, but it's the first time that finally TradFi will really embrace Web3. Will act because it acknowledged it probably in the last terms where saying, okay, Bitcoin is a great play. But this is the first time they'll be like, you know what? We fought you for years. Now we're going to become friends and partners. So this is something that I think so is very, very, very interesting to see. What will this do to the market? You see a lot of different provisions here that can be done. So if we do get 50 billion in the first year inflow, there's three different: conservative, base, and aggressive. Obviously, the aggressive is 150, which I believe it's a lot. But if you look at 50 or 100 billion, which is already quite a nice amount of money, that'll be done. You can see how which impact it will have. And going impact, if you go back to the gold, this is really where, a GLD started. And in 2008, where people started knowing about the gold and how this has propelled gold into all-time high. And if you do the same thing, our estimation right now, or guesstimation, is that Bitcoin in this first year of the launch of the ETF, 1 year later, you'll have 166% growth. So let's say it's 50,000. That means that you will probably see Bitcoin at $130,000. And the more medium approach, base approach, you would say that essentially, if you have 100 billions of inflow in the first year, you'll see a 330% growth in Bitcoin, which brings it to 75 or whatever, 180. And if we have 150 billion that pours in through these ETFs, essentially you have a 5x. So you see Bitcoin at 250, which are quite insane type of numbers. So I really encourage you guys to look at this in a great way. There's great fundamental value that's been done. It's really comparing what ETFs gold has created and how Bitcoin essentially is going to replicate this, and probably, I believe, in a much better way, because gold has been always something that people believed in, and they strongly realized that there was value always. And thanks to ETF and the secularization of it, it made it much easier. I think so. Bitcoin, it has this mysterious thing where the countries are adopting it, and there's so many other, investors that are interested in this new technology. It's something very much new, and when new things always have a better way to sell itself eventually, if it has proven to the world that it has value. And we know well that the technology behind Bitcoin is amazing. The community, the human capital behind Bitcoin is amazing. And everyone knows that even the worst people, as Gary, is the chairman of FCC, he has shown the world that he does love it, essentially Bitcoin, and there's nothing that will stop it. So this is why this will bring all-time high. I don't think that 50 billion, 100 billion will be poured within fraction of minutes and seconds. This will take a lot of time. We will probably see Bitcoin that will tank and be quite volatile to some moment. But on the long term, I'm extremely bullish thanks to this, the approval that will happen. I don't think so will happen in January. I believe it will happen later on in February or March, probably March for me. But that's just my guesstimation. We'll see how things will happen. I hope you enjoyed this report, and please check it out. So you guys, probably some of it have a glimpse already about it, and some people are just testing it as we speak. But the Today tab is something revolutionary that's come into SwissBorg. And you could see this just as a Today tab, but think going forward how this could get better and better. It's a way to discover your assets, discover the app, create a better experience, but as well remind you what are the positions that are performing well, not performing well, introduce you potentially some new products that you haven't been using, some research that's done on tokens, on the market outlook and going forward, new ways how to improve essentially your experience in general, how to manage your wealth, and maybe some customization that could go with it. This is something that will change the game. And again, try to show how we are different, how we're not the crypto casino, how we're not just trading essentially, but really how we could build wealth in a sustainable way. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Please give your feedback in this comments here. Please share the stories that you would like to see within that Today tab. There's a lot to be done. But I could only say that I'm very, very excited because things are going to get clearer and clearer, and you're going to be able to really connect in a much better way to your wealth and grow it in a healthy and wealthy way. Talking about community members is always one of my favorite one. And for this year, I want to really talk about Nana Makeup. If you don't know her, she's just a wonderful person that is extremely positive, optimistic about everything. She comes very often to a lot of different events in Suisse Romandie. So thank you so much, Nana, for being so optimistic, to coming to our different events, and to bring your great smile. Wish you a happy new year 2024. Going into the Tone Hall, number 9. This is a really different one, I think. So it's really been great to see that people have voted. 9,000 people have participated, and a lot has been done to the number 4. It's the number 4 decision that was the highest of all time. The one that essentially you could be able to stake some Borg in order to get a better reward in the future. So congrats for this new proposition that a lot of people really enjoyed by doing. And the 3 other ones, always there's similar ones, which is burn, which is always a big one, obviously. The second one is the safety net. The third one is the yield. And the fourth one, this was a little extra one with a vault that will give a nicer yield going forward. Thinking about Borg and the wealth on the long-term play, this is exactly the way to build your wealth. Weekly Borg and some data. Great performance on the premium side, 429. That's a huge amount, especially in this time, which was essentially New Year's Eve as a small wheat. Brings us to 152,447 people that own Borg token in the app, which is amazing. Unfortunately, the Borg itself is not doing too great, but it still brings, we're getting closer to that 50,000, essentially premium people in the app. And now it's road to 200,000 token holders, right? Brings us to community index, the first one of this year. Please cast your score. Try to know which it is. Are you bullish? Are you bearish? And yes, I am very bullish. Again, the board going well. The volume in the app is going okay-ish. App activity a little bit lower. Social as well, but not we're back. And the rest is pretty much bullish too. So great to have that. Beautiful burgers, could say that this is a fresh start of the year. This is a very good one. I hope that you have put in mind essentially all the important steps of your journey in 2024. Like, how do you visualize your success? How do you visualize your wealth growing? How do you visualize the fact that what are you going to do with this amount of wealth that you're going to grow? And try to look at your portfolio and saying like, this portfolio represents exactly the future of how I'm going to grow wealth, how I'm going to be essentially able to tap into this financial freedom or to wealth accumulation if you're already there. These moments are very, very important. I want all of you guys to, really close your eyes, think about what's going to happen this year. Take really the time to look at, the great things that are going to happen, the more tricky things, to remind yourself as well why you're doing all of this. Very often we go so fast and we're in this momentum on that, but we try to forget why we're doing this. And I think so. This is what I would like to convey this week is try to figure out, how do you see yourself in 1 year? How do you see yourself in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now? What are your big investment goals? You need to buy a house. You need to buy a new car. You need to, help your children, your parents, whatsoever. You want to, start, giving money to a charity, support a new cause, build your own company, do something that's really awesome. And how then you pass this on to the others. And I think so, just take that moment really take it and figure out that how this is going to be great and that the future is very bright. As always, be wealthy, be healthy, love our Borg and equity. Take care, guys. Bye.
Through SwissBorg, all assets will have a fiat gateway. And here is the thing.
Premium features gives you zero fee trading.
It's an amazing fiat gateway.